Have you in your research or prep for? Did you read Niobe Wei's work? I think it's Hidden Connections, or I can't remember what her
I've
book was
read
titled.
multiple articles and I've read one of her books. The It's not Secret Lives of Adolescent Males. I've read one of her books and almost all of her research articles.
Right.
I'm not sure about that book in
Because
particular.
yeah, it should be titled "The Secret Lives of Adolescent Males" because that's essentially what it alludes to. There's just so much data in that all these boys before they reach adolescence, they speak so eloquently and vibrantly about their male friendships. Like I don't know what I would do unless I had my friend to speak with. You need to let this stuff out. If you don't have to, you just explode. And like they just love their friends so much. It really spits in the face of all the things we think we know about men, that they're unemotional, that they don't need friendships, that they're these lone wolves or whatever. And then you see through her decade of research when the boys get to be late adolescence where it seems suicide peaks for boys, that's when they start subscribing to all these ideals of traditional masculinity, and they start becoming more separated. And like I don't think she ever really pinpointed, at least not specifically in her book, why exactly that happens, aside from like perhaps this is the idea of what we tell boys they have to become to be men. They have to be less emotional. You can't make yourself look like you're gay or a woman or whatever. And so I'm curious if any of your research echoed that, or if it was the opposite, or what sort of things that you found about how boys and adolescents aged and how their emotions might have changed.
Absolutely. The critical time period, I would argue, not just my research, but other research as well, is that the age of 13 to 15 is all the boys in my research who were grade 12 when I interviewed them said was the hardest time for them in terms of feeling the pressures to be man enough the most. So the pressure to restrict their emotions, the pressure to be cool, that was heightened around the end of elementary school and the start, grade 8 and 9 of high school. And there's a multiple factors going on. One is that there's also just puberty. So there's tons of changes
Right.
to their body, insecurities. Two, often moving to a bigger school is that you are a smaller fish in a larger pond. There's a lot more social posturing. And so when the social hierarchy is less stable, then unfortunately the common denominator usually is, especially amongst, to try keep your cards close, don't be an outlier, try to fit in. As one of the boys in my research said, yeah, it sucks to wear the mask of masculinity to suppress and not show what you actually kind of authentically are. But at
Mm.
the same time, you don't want to be the kid that nobody likes. And so that pressure, I would say grade 8 and 9 particularly is the hardest. Across the research, it's sometimes referred to as the second boy crisis that happens when boys get disconnected from parts of themselves. But of course,
Mm.
the trajectory of that is very interesting. Is like the reasons why did some boys um, resist those pressures or get back in touch with their emotional parts of themselves, and why did some continue on that journey? And that's why I interviewed the least emotionally expressive by grade 12 and the most emotionally expressive by the end of grade 12. And that's fascinating. And so then, if I, to answer your question of Niobe Wei's research, is that the three main reasons why teenage boys start to restrict their emotions is for these reasons: fear of judgment from others, particularly their male peers, fear of burdening others. Often parents' divorce was a huge factor, but didn't have to be that. But it was just like, my parents are dealing with enough shit as it is. I don't want to add to their stress.
Right.
And kind of this sense of like, oh, being a man should be, I should support other people. They shouldn't have to support me. I don't want to bring anyone down. So
Right.
that is a huge message that's internalized. And then the last one wasn't related to masculinity at all. It was just, I called it a preemptive protection strategy from further pain, which is a long, complicated way to say they were emotionally close to people in their lives, and for some reason they experience pain in that relationship, maybe through death, maybe just their best friend suddenly moving away to a different school, and they're like, oh, that sucks. I don't want to feel that pain of losing someone I'm close to again, so I'm not going to get emotionally attached to other people. And so those are the three main reasons. And we know there's a good case to be made that the three most harmful messages that are commonly associated with masculinity, although there's context here, is feeling the need to suppress your emotions, the need to be self-reliant, like don't ask for help from others, and the
Right.
need to be dominant over others. And those can lead into so many different things, but I will always qualify that of saying context matters. Sometimes suppressing your emotions is survival, but really adaptive in your context. Even needing to be dominant, which, like, if you think you like there's a hierarchy that some people are better than others, I'm not saying that that's good, but it makes sense in some people's growing up situations or context. It, there is a dominance at play that maybe you would have been more beaten up if you weren't dominant yourself. And so much of learning what health is also unlearning and also giving space for why we learned some of these things that do have negative consequences, but having compassion for them, but also realizing, okay, maybe can I change and can I grow away from some of these restrictive messages that actually I didn't realize but are hurting me and are hurting people around me.